you myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and every Tuesday night we'll have the Shields Gazette's Liam Kennedy on to talk Newcastle United. And Liam, I purchased this today, popcorn. I'm just going to sit back and put the questions on the screen and let you get on with it.
It's the first time, I was just saying off air, it's the first time I've ever been nervous coming on here. How are you, Steve? This is crazy.
Dear me, it got nothing to do with me, mate. I don't write the stories. Anyway, over to you, mate. You put a very well written, has to be said. I always say that about you, and as do most of our viewers. Story about the Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited, who have a legal challenge against the Premier League, and it has the backing, we believe, of Mike Ashley. And the paperwork is being, assessed by the owner and his associates. The Premier League, of course, have issued a no-comment status after receiving this legal letter. So tell us about it. How did you get the exclusive? And what's it all about? Because I've had a lot of texts, a lot of messages, and there's a lot of people scratching their heads, not understanding what on earth this is about. Some people think it's a great move. Other people think it's just couple of fans writing letters, and we've had enough of letters with this takeover, with letters to various parties trying to scupper the deal. But this is, if it is just a letter, it's a positive one, because it's somebody actually trying to stand up for their rights and stand up for the Newcastle United fans' rights and get this takeover done, which is what most of us, I'd say 99.9% of us, want to happen. So, over to you, mate.
Do you know what you say there? Get this takeover done. And do you know what this letter that was delivered to the Premier League early this morning really does take this story forward a notch. We've talked a lot about legal action. There's been a lot of things going on in the background with regards to Mike Ashley's QCs, and also a lot going on in the background with these guys, NCSL, who've done a lot of tireless work over the summer into the autumn. They've done it with no credit, effectively. They've really worked hard behind the scenes, and they are a credit to themselves and to Newcastle United if, and it's a big if still, but if they can manage to push this deal on a notch. We're talking about two prominent fans, Gordon Steen and Keith Patterson, with the help of QC Robert O'Donoghue, and they've managed to sort of put a letter in today, a letter before action, which basically gives the Premier League 7 days, effectively, to answer, to share any documents that have been requested with regards to anti-competition. And this is a new line of attack, effectively, within this legal action. It's gone from the idea of a restriction of trade, which we know was probably going to take quite a long time. And that's something that DeMarco, in particular, is a real expert in. And now we've gone on to something that Robert O'Donoghue's a big expert in, and that's anti-competition. A lot of it's focused around the idea that being sports influenced the decision or the lack of decision-making that the Premier League had during the owners and directors test. It also touches upon the idea that much publicised, your likes of Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United, others, the Big Six project, big picture, that this had some kind of impact on Newcastle United, the takeover that stalled, not going through. The legal argument makes a lot of sense. I reported on it today. I've retweeted out for anybody who wants to see it. Look on my Twitter and you can read through the full legal documents. Also, check out Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited. It's NCSL 1882. Check that out. Give it a follow, because they're going to be giving regular updates with regards to this. It's a fantastic movement. And like I say, anybody who's asking any more than that, really, they kind of have to join the dots. It's been something I've said to a lot of people today, and I'm not really going to go into too much detail with regards to that. I'm going to continue to say, I think everybody knows what happened. Everybody can see what happened. And everybody, I think, knows the answer, and they can join the dots as to where we're going and what has happened this summer.
Okay, a lot of comments coming in. I'll struggle to keep up with them all, obviously. Yeah, big viewing figures tonight, which, people saying, was it fixed? No, it wasn't. I was shocked to see Liam's story. And Liam and I keep in touch on a regular basis. Liam certainly didn't ring me before this to let me know. So it was as much of a shock to me. What I'll say, and in defense of, I'm saying in defense of Liam, because he has been attacked quite a bit today, but he's a big lad and he can handle it, is that, the contacts that I have on both sides of the fence, and as I've said on more than one occasion on NUFC matters, I speak to people on the buyer side and on the seller's side. This is something which Mike Ashley backs 100%, and he is willing to look at this and say, actually, this isn't a bad starting point. And he has the biggest legal eagles on this case. If two supporters and friends can get together and put something like this forward, which fast tracks it, then why not? Why not do that? Is Mike Ashley going to pay for it? Who knows? Is Mike Ashley able to get involved? By the sounds of what Liam says, no, he isn't. But it's down to these supporters. There seems to be a lot of concern, Liam, and I'll point to John Poole's question here, that the War Fund group is involved with this. Now, Daniel Fox is watching tonight. I've seen a comment already in the comments. Daniel, fair play to him. He put his head above the parapet at the start of this whole takeover thing. He was trying to get people's interest in the War Fund campaign and the people behind it. I spoke to him. I had him on the show on more than one occasion. I'll have him back on the show again at some point. But fair play to the kid, because he stuck at it despite all the criticism. He then disappeared. And now it's not him, but it's the people he was involved with have come back with something actually genuine. Instead of sitting on the backsides, slagging people off on Twitter, they've actually gone out and done something. And that is what these people should be applauded for. They haven't sat and tried to recruit. And I am going to have a dig at the Supporters Trust in this particular section, because I feel that the Supporters Trust should have done this. NUST should have been looking at doing something like this. Instead, it's gone to a completely different organisation. This would have got the Supporters Trust more members than anything else had they thought of it and done it. But instead, what they have spent the last 6 months doing is recruiting, and running their election, which is fine. Great, run your election. But 15,000 members would like to see this takeover go through. You've got to ask yourself, does the Supporters Trust want it to go through? Or are they keeping their options open and seeing if there's another horse comes in and jumping on that horse? It's something that's annoyed me. I've got to be honest. I'm a trust member. I didn't want to run for the trust. I've been on the board, but I personally felt this should have been a trust thing. Over to you on on the War Fund people then, because a lot of people scratching their heads going, what on earth is this all about? Why are they involved? Who are they? Is this a joke? Over to you.
Look, I think people make the obvious connections. It's out there. Dan, others, the people involved behind the scenes. There's sort of 5 or 6 of the guys who've been working hard, like I said, behind the scenes. I think they accept they were naive the first time round. They did things wrong. They accepted that. They closed down their account, stopped asking for people's money in a really difficult situation. They realised their wrongs, put them right, sent money back to people, and realised this is something, if they were going to take it on, they had to do privately. And to be honest, I've been speaking to these guys for, I would say, probably since August, quite regular, just to see how things have developed. And this isn't something that's been on the table since August. This has always been quite a private thing between these guys. But I would say over the last 3 to 4 weeks, that's really, really accelerated with the involvement of other people. And I think they've learned the lessons of what they did wrong the first time, and they won't make that same mistake again. And you said they deserve credit. They deserve a massive amount of credit, because they've managed to do something today that nobody else has even got close to. They managed to do something today that even top legal people in the country have struggled to do so quickly. They've managed to pull the evidence together. They've managed to put this letter in today, which really is a shot across the bows to the Premier League. This is the wake-up call at the Premier League. It was delivered this morning, and it's now you open your doors and provide the evidence that is required, or we're coming after you. And next week there will be the letter to court if the Premier League don't respond. Now, will the Premier League respond? I wouldn't bet on it. They're very. I was speaking of the Premier League today. I've got a contact there, and again, we will not offer any guidance, anything on this. Won't even confirm that they received the letter. Now we know they did, but they won't even go as far to say they did that. And that's the approach, the lack of transparency, which is mentioned in those legal documents, and why we got the release of those legal documents today is that these guys want to be transparent. They want to be transparent, and that's something that the Premier League haven't done throughout this process. But going back to the War Fund guys and NCSL, they do deserve a massive amount of credit. They know they were naive the first time, but they really have enacted, in my opinion, the beginning of the end game. I think this is a real wild card approach that everybody has taken. Everybody's backing it. Everybody's behind it. You've got willing sellers, willing buyers, a real willing fan base. Like you said, not just trust members, whereby you would say it was 95% of those wanted this deal to go through, but there's not really been the big push since they got their answers from Richard Masters, which weren't great and didn't give with the answers that we wanted. And what we really,
because they didn't ask the questions they were supposed to ask. The questions they should have asked were basically, standing there for everybody to look at. Everybody knows what they should have been asking, but they didn't. And it was because, unfortunately for them, or fortunately for them, if you look at it, they were asked to go in as part of the FSA meeting, which is something which, they managed to get the takeover on the agenda. They were never going to get, 2 hours with Dickie Masters. It was all about having 10 minutes of mentioning the takeover and claiming a moral victory again to be able to say that they wanted to recruit new members. So for me, you can tell that's a bee in me bonnet, but that was a missed opportunity by the trust. And they might have asked a question and got told to shut up, but at least they would have asked the question that was relevant. Yes. But unfortunately for me, I just feel that was just a huge missed opportunity, and it's taken the War Fund lads to actually get to this stage and push something, and you can see what happens when you do something that's positive. Mike Ashley backs it, and he's not the Premier League's he's not a big fan of the Premier League at the minute. We just need to look at his outburst yesterday.
Yeah, he's playing puppet master here. I think he's playing games. He's sort of toying around a little bit with the Premier League, knowing that this kind of thing was on the horizon, and there'll be other developments as well. And I want to go back to the NCSL, and what I want to praise them for is they took so much criticism, particularly on social media, and yes, they got things wrong. But ultimately, these guys, no matter what they're trying to do, is they want the same as us. They want this takeover to go through. They want better for Newcastle United and the fans at heart. And they've put their heart and soul many, many hours. I've had phone conversations with some of them guys till 11, 12 at night. This isn't something that they're picking up and putting down once every couple of weeks. This is something they've been working on daily since the summer, and they really do deserve a lot of credit. And I'm not going to say this is going to result in the takeover that we all want, but you know what? It's better to do something than nothing, and these guys deserve a hell of a lot of credit for what they've done. Yep,
they do. Here. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please just click the thumb. That gives us a like. That helps us. If you're the first-time visitor and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Liam's on every week. We have different shows on 7 nights a week. So please join NUFC Matters' channel. It's a great community, and if you want to get involved, give us a shout as well. It's your platform, not mine. I'm just the person who facilitates and helps interview people. But Liam is on every Tuesday, so always worth tuning in, because we've had a multitude of information from Liam over the summer and throughout the start of the season, and this is great for you to be able to get this story out there. Nathan's got a question on the screen. Liam, you mentioned there was a date for the Premier League to reply. Not saying they will. What happens if they don't reply?
So that date, just to reaffirm out there for anybody who hasn't seen it, is next week. It's November the 3rd by 4 p.m. They've got to have replied sufficiently. I've got to add that as well, which is documented in the documents. And if that doesn't happen, then things move on a level. So then we're likely to see legal representations made to the court, and that's when things would really start to ramp up. And then we'll probably get down the road of we might get some kind of court date should this be deemed suitable to go to court. And I'm pretty sure we haven't come this far down the line with all of the money spent, which it has been privately by these people, and all of the efforts that have gone in, that they have not presented this with the idea that it will not go to court. I certainly believe in their cause, and I believe that it will go to court if the Premier League don't act sufficiently in the next 7 days. And that's the massive thing. Do the Premier League really want to open their doors to all of the stuff that's gone on recently? The statement said it. the big project, big picture, the big six? Do they really want to be opening the doors to these kind of conversations? And that's what we're talking about here in disclosure. We're talking about WhatsApp messages. We're talking about emails. We're talking about internal, external. We're talking about everything. And that, do the Premier League really want those conversations coming out that they might have had with Liverpool, might have had with Tottenham, Manchester United, Arsenal, whoever? Do they really want that coming out? And that's the question you've really got to ask is, are the Premier League prepared to open their doors for everybody to see what's been going on, or are they not? And I think we'll find that out in 7 days.
Yeah, I agree. Terry Ross was asking what is happening with Ashley's legal movement. I mean, has there been anything on that at all in recent weeks?
Look, it's, again, I'm going to keep saying just join the dots. I can't say exactly what's going on, but none of this is happening by accident. If I say that in a different way of joining the dots, none of this is happening by accident. And that's the new phrase that I'll term, considering people don't seem to be able to join the dots sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. It's a difficult position to be in because, ultimately you're a journalist, you're a professional, but you're also a Newcastle fan. So there is that hard balancing act, which, you have to go through, and you have to be professional, but at the same time, you can't get too carried away. And you'd love to shout from the rooftops, I know this, and I know this, and I know this. However, if you're the person who does leak something or put something out there, which jeopardizes this entire takeover and it collapses like a pack of cards, then, how are you going to feel? And what are people's reaction going to be to you?
Like I said, I've said this numerous times. Regular watchers will know exactly what I say on this. I was a Newcastle United fan long before I was a writer. And the last thing in the world I would want to do is write anything that could potentially be detrimental to this takeover bid. I want this takeover to go through. It could potentially be absolutely life-changing for that football club. It's a football club we all love. So fingers crossed, things are moving in the right direction. I've been hinting on here for weeks that things are moving in the right direction. So have you, Steve. But it's hard to say what you can and can't say. You don't want to be giving away sources, giving away information that's been taught you in trust. But now we're starting to see the little fruits of labour. Things are starting to come to fruition. And fingers crossed, over the next week or so, and then potentially the next month beyond that, we'll start to see things accelerate. Yeah.
And what did you make of the social media, retweets, I suppose, this morning? Because that does play its part. There's no doubt about that. It certainly plays its part as far as supporters are concerned. Mere Dad, of course, Amanda Staveley's husband, retweeting the article. And then we had Jamie Rubin, of course, who has just resigned from his position at Queen's Park Rangers, doing the same. And then Anton Deck, of course, getting in on the act, who have a bigger following than most of us in the Northeast put together. And they got involved as well. So, it was a lot of traction for the Shields Gazette and your article. But I think the people who were retweeting it shows you, how much mileage there is in this.
And that was the best thing about it, was when those retweets come through, because they're proper endorsements. That shows that the people are, at the very, very least, supportive of what this action is in this movement legally. The Anton Deck stuff was just surreal, really. It's an incredible thing. And I think they've probably added 20 or 30,000 people watch it, sort of read my story out of nowhere in a matter of a couple of hours. It was quite incredible. But
you might get better lighting in the jungle, Liam.
I might, I'm not going there. No chance. No, but it's legitimacy. And do you know what? These lads behind the scenes, let's move away from the idea of a war fund, because that was a mistake, and they accepted it was a mistake, and they've moved on and closed that down and refunded everybody who gave any kind of money and explained to them why, shut down their Twitter, etc. It's NCSL, and they deserve a lot of credit for what's gone on here. They really do. They've put a lot of effort into this, and fingers crossed that they've now got that legitimacy, because they've got the support of really high-ranking people in this consortium, really high-ranking people in terms of what we think Geordie legends and Anton Deck and others. And now we're seeing the likes of, from my story this morning, we're seeing the likes of Sky Sports. We're seeing interview requests from the BBC, ITV. We're seeing plenty of other news outlets now really starting to jump on board with this, because it is real, it is legitimate, and it has got a real chance of blowing this takeover process wide open. So I cannot reiterate it enough. It's a fantastic job the NCSL lads have done.
Ben Gibson asking, will the buying side be made aware this was happening? I see Jamie Rubin and Amanda's husband tweeted about it. Are they involved indirectly with this? They're not involved indirectly, not at all. As I've said in the past, they keep an eye on everything that's going on. And from their perspective, they're obviously very happy about this. There's no doubt about that, Liam.
Yeah, obviously you can see by the retweets today that they're fully supportive of this action.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people asking about Red Rose Michelle. She was invited onto the show. I've invited her on numerous occasions. She has managed to do one show before. She does have to ask Gallagher Shots for a loan period if she comes onto my show, apparently. But tonight she is actually playing touch rugby. But if you want to see what Red Rose Michelle has said on Twitter, then I'm sure you can find that on her Twitter feed. And yeah, please do, because she put her breakdown of what she made of all of that, because like me, she gets asked a lot of questions. So yeah. Go on, you can answer to that. Would have been nice to have her on, but maybe another time. As I say, she is busy tonight. So from your perspective, yeah, go. The floor is yours, Liam. You answer the question.
Yeah, purely what I would have said on that is, even if she'd been on tonight, she did tweet you saying she had lots of questions she wanted to ask about this. I think really, instead of coming on a podcast and asking a journalist who basically reports the news, doesn't make the news, she probably needs to ask her contacts in the law firms that she knows, in the law game, to get explanations of why the letter says what it does. I couldn't give her those answers, so I think it would have probably been a waste of time in some ways asking those kind of questions to me. Because it's not me who wrote the letter, I just report on it. And obviously I understand some of it, but to have asked me in-depth legal questions with regards semantics, the way things have been termed, the breakdown, the way things have been structured, would have been wholly unfair, to be honest. I think she probably needs to... They're in her law game. She said she doesn't know them. But I'm pretty sure, as I would in the journalist game, if you want to get to know somebody, you've just got to ask around. So if she wants answers to those questions and to provide Newcastle United fans with a more detailed analysis with all of the facts, then I think she can probably find those answers herself.
Yeah, Tune 2020. If Katie got her Nando's, I'm not sure. Ladies' night last night, of course. Katie said she wouldn't swear. And if she didn't swear, Nathan was going to buy her a Nando's. Well done, Katie. Whether Nathan has bought the Nando's, I'm not 100% sure. Yes, 800 people on tonight, 860. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you're enjoying the show. And as I say, we're on, at the moment, due to COVID, we're on 7 nights a week with completely different shows. We also do a match day live. So please subscribe. Please join the channel. If you want to make a donation, that would be great. If not, everything's free. We don't charge for anything. But we do have some rather splendid sponsors who always chuck a few quid in to help us pay for StreamYard, so that we've actually got a good platform to stream the show. So give a shout out, please, to our sponsors. If I can find our logos, because I've got that many pictures. I'm actually doing a pre-record after this show as well for our show tomorrow night. But it's a big shout out to Darren Baldwin Funerals, who are a local independent family business and 24-hour service. Big thanks to him. He's coming up to the end of his sponsorship. And qtechshop.co.uk, who essentially make pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend. So big thank you to them. Martin, a bit of support for you. Liam, he just says, don't listen to the guys who give you a stick on social media. No one else but a small minority like yourself that has kept us informed. You only share facts and your honest opinion, and you've not given any fans false hope. That's a nice message from Martin there. I will, and I know that Liam won't, just mention the comments about Luke Edwards. As I've said on this show before, I've had discussions many a time with Luke on Twitter. I got the measure of the man on more than one occasion, and I decided to block him. I blocked him on Twitter, so I have no idea what Luke Edwards is saying or what he thinks or what he's doing. People do send us screenshots. I'm not particularly interested. His opinion for me is irrelevant. He hasn't got the contacts. He's too close to Steve Bruce, and for me, I just ignored anything he said. So I'm not going to drag Liam into it. He's a professional journalist. He's in the same kind of profession, except Liam's got the contacts and Luke doesn't. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. Let's talk about Steve Bruce, Liam. he did come out, and this is maybe another piece of the jigsaw. Was it a Freudian slip in his 3-minute interview with Sky, where he came out and said he wouldn't be there much longer because there was parties on Tyneside when he did say that, but then obviously retracted. When you watch the 3-minute version, it didn't really sound like it did when you saw the 30-second clip where he said he was going to be, hanging whatever it is that he has to hang up, because it's certainly not a clipboard and pen.
Do you know what? I'm going to go back to something you said before we talk about Steve Bruce. I'm going to go towards Luke Edwards, and I've been really supportive of him on this show. I've got to say, I've been a little bit disappointed by some of his tweets towards me, pointed towards me, and I would happily say that to his face. I'm not going to get into a Twitter spat. I've made mistakes like that in the past. It doesn't look good for anybody. So I'm not going to get involved in all that kind of thing. But I'm just a little bit disappointed. The approach that he's taken, he's almost digging stories out when they're factual and they're correct. And I wouldn't do that to anybody else. You might not retweet it, you might not endorse it, but also I wouldn't try and publicly question and publicly shame somebody, which I feel partly with some of his tweets in the last day or two, he maybe has. And to answer his questions on some of the things, like, I come on here because Steve's my mate. We enjoy sitting on a Tuesday night, and I enjoy talking with Steve, and I enjoy talking with fans. I like getting your questions, and I like giving you answers where I can give them. So any criticism that's come my way because I do podcasts with Steve, he can stick it up his arse, because I'm not interested. I'm really not. I do this for myself. I do for Steve because we like it, and I do for you fans out there because you like hearing it. You wouldn't watch, you wouldn't come back, and that's what keeps me coming back, is because you guys give the positive feedback, and you quite like it. It might not always be what you want to hear, but I'll give you honest opinions. And that just has irked me a little bit this week, that he would sort of publicly call me out. There was no need for it. And with the stuff today, when he's asking us join the dots, what does that really mean, join the dots? Well, mate, I can't do your job for you. You join the dots yourself. That's what you're meant to do. So I'll leave it at that on him. And we'll go back onto his mate, Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce, I don't know what to make of that, really, because I don't want to be too critical of Bruce, but he isn't the most eloquent at times. So I can imagine he might have slipped the wrong kind of wording in somewhere. But there are rumours. Obviously, with all this going on in the background, that I very much doubt Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce there, fantastic, one of his better pictures. I don't think another one. I don't think Steve Bruce is daft, and I think he knows that were this takeover to go through, that he wouldn't be the first choice of manager. Somebody isn't going to spend that kind of money on a football club and employ a championship manager. So I think he knows the writing's on the wall if this goes through, and I think he knows that things are ticking over, not only from the stuff he sees in the press, but from the people above him at the football club, because everybody's involved in this. It's a coordinated effort to get this takeover done, and we're just seeing one strand of that at the moment, with fans really taking it to the Premier League, and fingers crossed that all works. And you know what? He says he's a Newcastle United fan, and I'm pretty sure he'd be happy to step aside were Newcastle United ready to appoint Jose Mourinho, or ready to appoint Maurizio Pochettino or Max Allegri. I'm pretty sure he'd quite happily walk aside and let his football club that he says he supports have somebody of that kind of calibre as the manager.
Mutt Murphy says Steve Wraith versus Luke Edwards, Sky Sports, box office, pay-per-view. First of all, I wouldn't do anything with pay-per-view. And secondly, the amount of weight I'm losing, and he must be putting on drinking red wine, would be completely different weights.
Look, Steve, I've seen you at a boxing show drag someone out the back door when there was bother. I'm backing you all the way.
God, South Shields, I broke me bloody toe that night, I think. That was absolutely mental, that. But I'm seeing you kept that out the paper. The boxing board weren't very happy. They were wondering where my security was. But yeah, old habits die hard, mate. Old habits die hard. A lot of people asking who's funding this with regards to this legal challenge. It's the guys themselves. And as you already said, they've put a lot of time and effort into this and man hours to get it to this stage. And they're funding it themselves. They're passionate Newcastle fans. And I know who they are. They're passionate Newcastle fans. Yeah,
they're paying for it. Everything that's happened to this point with regards to getting Robert O'Donoghue on board and other actions that are taking place has been come out of their own pockets of these guys in and around this NCSL. So yeah, again, all credit to them.
Okay, Jamie Rubin, we've got to touch on that. He resigned from Queen's Park Rangers this week. And, you know, that caused a massive flutter on Twitter. Everybody was buzzing about it. And, you know, he was rather coy, basically saying that he didn't really want to, didn't want to offend, you know, the Queen's Park Rangers fans. And it was unfair on them, you know, to continue in his role as a director there because of the, you know, the potential of a takeover still going on at Newcastle. What was your take on that?
Look, I've said it before, and I don't think these things are coincidence. Stuff is moving, and that doesn't mean it will happen. But I think it's all connected. I do. I'm not going to tell you that I'm basing that on 1,000,001 bits of information that I've got, or I'm hiding away from you. But I do think it's too close, too coincidental not to be connected to all of this. I think if Jamie Rubin had wanted to resign from QPR and distance himself from things, he might have done it in February. He might have done it in May when things looked like they were going through, which they were. Everybody was told, Mike Ashley and the consortium were told things were fine. Things were moving forward. And then June, the problems came. He may well have done it in July when he was publicly speaking about the disappointment of not getting the Newcastle United takeover through. So that's why, to me, I don't think the timing really rings true. I think it was too coincidental.
Yeah, it was a strange one, I've got to be honest, but it's, you know, for me, as you say, I think the stars are aligning, and that's what a lot of people are saying. You know, lots of things happening, lots of things moving. A lot of people asking about PIF, and we know you've got contacts in Saudi. Have you heard anything at all from you know, from Saudi or PIF as to what's going on and you know, how they feel? I mean, my last information regarding PIF was very simple. You know, we're still very interested. We still want to buy Newcastle United, but you know, time is running out.
Yeah, conflicting. They're still there and they still want to buy the football club, and that's all that matters. What I would say is I don't believe that they will be at the table forever. So that's why this kind of action, which can be pushed through quite quickly, is something that's really gonna be beneficial for the deal. Because I think if we need to get it through, I think everybody knows that it was hinted at in the legal documents today that everybody wants to have an impact on the January window. They really need to. We don't want to have another season whereby there is uncertainty, because this deal isn't worth anywhere near. There's question marks whether it's worth the amount now, given the uncertainties. The amount of uncertainty in football, but this is a long-term project for them, not short-term. But it definitely wouldn't be worth it should Newcastle United become embroiled in some kind of relegation battle, which really could happen. Because we all watch this. We're not daft. Newcastle fans aren't daft. We see Newcastle United at the moment under Steve Bruce feels like it's built on sand. Yes, results are positive, and yes, the head is above water. But there's no guarantees that will be the case in 3 months' time. So I think they want to have an impact on January, which is key here. And I'm not saying they're definitely going to walk away or whatever, but I think they do definitely want to have a big impact in January, and that is the last opportunity really that they'll have to have an impact on this season. Otherwise, it's in the lap of the gods whether Steve Bruce does enough, whether the players that he's got do enough. And to be honest, we're not sure Newcastle United's players can do enough, because 1 week they look great and then the next week they look absolutely horrendous. I say that actually. It's more like 1 week they look great and then for 3 or 4 weeks they look terrible. That's more the way it's been probably in the last, in the 18 months that Steve Bruce has been manager. He's done enough. He's done enough to keep head above water, but somebody spending 300 million plus on a football club is not going to want to keep your head above water.
No, definitely not. Quick answer on this one, mate. Any idea where Henry Morris is?
I think he's in Luke Edwards' back pocket.
Okay, that'll do. Michael Chopra. People are asking about Michael. Any communication from Michael? Are they still hanging around? Are they still at the table?
I've been sworn to secrecy.
Okay. Very good, very good. Look, it's been fascinating to hear your answer on that, and we like to talk football on the show as well. I know we're looking back again at a pretty non-event Wolves. It wasn't a great game. Newcastle United didn't really turn up until they conceded the goal, and then they went gung ho. What was your take on the match, Liam?
Newcastle United were pretty much just as what we expect from Newcastle United. It was a strange team. Some of it worked, some of it really didn't work. And I think Newcastle can think themselves reasonably lucky to walk away with a point from a side who, again, will almost certainly be up there in and around the edges of the fringes of the top six. So, yeah, I would say it's a positive point, but again, it's a game where performances of players, key individuals, systems, just commands given to players, the roles, the jobs that they're meant to do, don't really leave you with any kind of confidence that can be replicated. Better performances can be replicated by using that. I'm actually not against the system. I think going back to the three at the back might work for Newcastle because they've got good enough defenders to do that. And they've also got personnel in other areas in the wing-back roles. So I think that suits Lewis better as a wing-back. And I think potentially Mankio seems to have gone off the boil in Bruce's eyes, but that does suit him longer term. Look, keep it with Jacob Murphy. He was fantastic. And he's been given an opportunity out of position to go and prove himself, and he did really, really well. And until he proves himself, I wouldn't bring Mankio back in. But I do think there's the personnel. Look, even Ryan Fraser has played that position internationally for Scotland. There's plenty of players can play that role. It's always the midfield that we go back to. The midfield isn't quite right. I don't mind Miguel Almiron as a central midfielder, but you lose a lot of the good things that he does well in that kind of role where he's constantly defending. Jeff Hendrick took a lot of criticism, but I think he was okay. It wasn't the worst that we've seen. And a lot of people talking about the John Joe Shelby not being in the team. And I don't think Newcastle massively missed him. And I think it's more Isaac Hayden that Newcastle missed. But again, I've said on here, I'm not the biggest fan of any of them. But we'll see. I think there were positives you can take, Jacob Murphy being the key one. And like I say, my positive from that was I actually don't mind that formation. And I don't mind the idea of Alan St. Maximin playing up top-ish with Callum Wilson. But that free role idea against a team so well drilled defensively as Wolves as they are just didn't work. But I'm not saying that couldn't work again, because I think that as an idea isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay.
In other news, Mike Ashley, our illustrious leader, did have a go at the Premier League about pay-per-view. What did you make about
that? Interesting. It is interesting, isn't it? All of a
sudden, is that another star aligning? Is that Mike just, I don't know, throwing in a dead cat before this news of legal action came in?
Well, you did see the statement today, and there was a big reference to it. And I think this is all a narrative that's building around this takeover with regards to this legal action. And I think Mike Ashley's comments, public comments, the tone of them, the way they were bobbed towards the Premier League, the idea of painting this context around the Premier League that almost are robbing fans. I think it all builds, and I think it's all very orchestrated. Everybody knows what they're doing. There's a lot of intelligent people puppeting this from all angles, and I think that's what I took from it. And I tweeted that out. I said he's toying with them, and I think that's exactly what he's doing. We know Mike Ashley hasn't suddenly got a conscience. He's not really had that much of a conscience over his 13 years, so I don't necessarily believe that he's grown one all of a sudden on this issue. Let's remember Newcastle United did vote for it. And he also had to address that. So, and there's the hypocrisy, of course, that Newcastle United fans have not received their direct debits back, have not received their full season tickets back for this season. The club continue to take money from people's bank accounts monthly for season tickets. So there is a real hypocrisy in those comments as well, which can't be overlooked.
Alan Thompson saying, why do you think the Sky pundits praise Steve Bruce up to the hilt as doing a fantastic job when we're the most boring team in the league? Probably looking at some of the comments over the weekend, Alan's right, but Chris Sutton did have a pop at Steve Bruce's brand of football, calling it awful.
He's not far wrong, really, is it? It hasn't been good to watch. Newcastle United have been an absolute ball fest for quite a long time. You have flashes of brilliance at times, but overall, it's a real pain to watch Newcastle United. So yeah, I think it's just lazy. The amount of bad pundits we have on TV. There are some fantastic ones, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, some of the things that they're well researched pundits. But when people like Tim Sherwood are just burst out from nowhere, Kieran Dyer, these aren't well researched pundits. I don't give them the time of day, to be honest, and I would advise most people out there to do the same.
Okay, Barry Taylor. Oh, it must be Barry. I feel his own pet. Can you confirm, Liam, whether the guys bringing the legal action have documentation to support their current action? Hopefully, yes, to make the Premier League nervous.
Well, Newcastle did sign a bricklayer this week, so it does tie in quite well, doesn't it, Steve?
We need one for the goal, in case all our keepers get injured at the same time. But yeah, I mean, they've got documentation. They've done everything properly.
Yeah, they've got evidence, piles and piles and piles of evidence. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. And a lot of it is already out there for everybody to see. When you actually collate a lot of the evidence together, it's amazing. It's amazing to see how much there really is and how much.
I've done it.
Yeah,
I've done it. I've written it.
Yeah.
That's why the trust thing is so frustrating. But that's another thing. Are many of DeMarco's tweets hiding hidden messages and hidden aside from Breadgate? Somebody like DeMarco, I mean, look, it's a novelty when you get people doing, taking something on Twitter as a sign, etc. But there's got to be something in that as well, hasn't there? The way that he keeps, playing the fans, I suppose, playing to his audience.
Of course there is. And I'm not necessarily saying I think we read too much into too much. But the nods with the Blanc de Noir, champagne, the brown ale. I wouldn't necessarily go as far to say the bread cutting is a sign, but and the black and white, none of that really. But he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And we're talking about somebody on Twitter here who's probably getting bombarded by Newcastle United fans at one point. And I think this is a message from him in some ways. Some of the little hints are just have been to let people know that it's still going on. You're still in my thoughts, and people have picked up on that. And I don't think it's any more than that. People are like, oh, it must be imminent. It's never been imminent. But what it is him probably just letting everybody know that things are ongoing. And we see that they are ongoing.
A lot of people asking about Money Mike Ashley. You've been accused of being him. I've been accused of being him. Other people have. I can quite honestly say, hand on heart, it's not me. I know for a fact it's not you. Somebody's saying if you're a good journalist, you'd be able to find out who it was. It would probably it would just ruin it, wouldn't it, if we knew who it was? I mean, there's one thing for certain. It's very funny. It's probably one of the funniest parody sites on Twitter. If you're a Newcastle fan, but I think there's been a certain change in direction over the last 12 months from the Money Mike Ashley account, and it has become almost factual. It's actually putting its money where its mouth is and actually coming out with a lot of predictions, which has got people thinking that it could actually be somebody in the know. What's your take on it? And do you enjoy reading it?
Sometimes, yeah, I do enjoy reading it. Yeah, it's a bit of fun. It calls out people who call out others. I've got nothing wrong with that in some ways. And you know what? It's been pretty spot on. Whoever it is out there, they've got good contacts. And I sort of doff my cap to them because that's exactly what you should have in this game, good contacts. And I think you can tell that a lot of it is factual, some of it funny. But yeah, Money Mike's been like a theme throughout lockdown and all this troubles that we've had. It's almost kept the Newcastle United fans intrigued, interested, smiling at times, kept them interacting. I think it's been a positive thing, really.
The pay-per-view thing interested me yesterday. I'm glad it's fresh in my memory. It was the figures that we got through for the Newcastle against Manchester United game. 40,000 is the figure that was quoted. Do you believe 40,000 people stumped up $14.95 to watch that?
I'll be honest with you, I'm quite naive on this front. I don't really know what these kind of figures bring in, these kind of events. It doesn't seem a lot, does it, really? But that is quite a lot when there was such a big movement against it. I don't know. I think I had to buy it. I had to buy it for my job, so I had to watch it. So I'm one of those 40,000, and I'm sure people out there, even though they might not wanted to, would also have wanted to watch the game and did buy it. But I fully support the movement for not buying it, and it's a disgrace that we're being asked to pay for these games, especially people with who already have subscription packages. These games should be dished out for free. It's a perfect opportunity for the likes of this. Could be a change. This could be a turning point, a change where all games go live. It would not stop crowds. People would still want their season tickets and still want to go. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know what will happen. It needs to come down though. I actually don't think anybody should pay for it. But if it was a £5, I think people would find that less offensive. The $14.95 was a real kick in the teeth to fans a lot of them have already paid to watch that club. Interesting. I just want to mention one of them comments I just put on there, Steve. I did see Lee Ryder of the Chronicle did mention he knows who Money Mike is. Did you see that?
Neil Mitchell, the Geordie dentist, knows who it is, 100%. And there's no doubt he knows who it is because he does. But again, it's not for me to say. It's for people to find out, and I'm sure they will at some point. But it's interesting anyway. It is interesting, and it is a really good it is a good account. I want to talk about the supporters getting back into ground, something which we've covered on the show on more than one occasion, and it was the fact that Norwich City at the weekend allowed supporters into the ground to sit in the executive boxes. There was a tarpaulin put up so that they couldn't see the pitch, and they were allowed to watch the game on televisions in executive boxes. And in London, West Ham United fans were allowed to gather at a cinema and watch a beanbag. 1,000 supporters in a cinema were allowed to watch the football. I mean, for me, surely going into an executive box with 10 people or 12 people or whatever it is, or going into a cinema with 1,000 people, you've got more chance of spreading this bloody virus than you had sitting in West Ham Stadium or Norwich's Stadium, socially distanced in different stands. Can you understand that?
Well, I think there is a little bit of understanding that can be sort of put to that. I think probably places like cinemas probably need the cash a little bit more than Premier League football clubs or Championship football clubs. So I can see some justification, but purely as a football fan, I would much rather than go and sitting at the Silver Link, I would much rather go to St James's Park, you know what I mean, than sit there and, So I can see a small justification for it. I think the boxes with the blinds pulled down, watching on TVs is ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous. It's something that we need to break through. And I think a good mix and a good blend would work. I still think you could let certain fans in, but also do the beanbacks. We've known that in the past. I remember Newcastle when I was young. I remember going to the arena to watch derby games and things like that, you know what I mean, that you couldn't get to. So these beanbacks do work, and people will still go to them. But I also think there should be, we're at a point now where I was at South Shields on Saturday. There was about a crowd of 300, 350 there. And the energy, there was an energy. It could have been worth 10 times that. There was an energy among people, and that's reciprocated. The players feed off that. The fans feed off the players' energy. And it's something that can't be replicated in any other way, shape or form. Football's become very sterile with no supporters then. And let's be honest, getting fans in ground isn't the be-all and end-all. There are more important things in life at the moment. But it's a big thing to some people, a lot of people. And I think it cheapens the product as well, that there aren't some kind of fans there, because I believe there's an accountability. It's not only accountability, but like I said, the energy that comes from fans and goes back to players. I just think it makes the game a better product. And I think we need to have, there are sensible options. There's sensible ways of getting a certain amount of fans into grounds, and we should be doing that, really. We should be at all levels.
Yeah, I would agree. Before we'll go on to the weekend's game, just want to say happy birthday to two friends of the show, two people who have had on NUFC Matters. Lee obviously was doing a regular show up until the non-league season started, because he's in Blue Star now. But big happy birthday to Lee Clark, Newcastle legend, and also big happy birthday to Matty Patterson as well, both sharing the same day. Hope you've had a good day, fellas. Okay. Everton this weekend. Coming off the back of the 1-1 draw at Wolves. It felt going from Man United into Wolves like it was going from the frying pan into the fire. But this game, I don't know. I'm in two minds. It's 2:00 kickoff live on Sky Sports, not pay-per-view. Hallelujah. Newcastle's team. We still have Shelvey, Dubravka, Dwight Gale, and Matt Ritchie on the sidelines. Obviously, probably a bit too early to say if there's anyone going to be coming back. But what's your views on this game coming up at the weekend?
Look, I think it's got to be horses for courses. And I think Steve Bruce had that change in formation, change in style up his sleeve. It didn't really work. But I don't mind seeing managers do that. I don't mind seeing them change teams or formations. I'm not massive on sticking to rigid kind of systems and positions, because some games you may, for example, the Brighton game I'll go back to, it didn't suit Alan St. Maximin to play down the left wing against a team who relied on a right back. So I think I don't mind seeing that from Steve Bruce. And if he changes around again, then that's fine. But ultimately, he's the one going to be has got to be studying what Southampton did this week to Everton, where they prevented any kind of attacking impetus. They've got to do that. They've got to look at that, study it, see how it was done, and just better it, because Everton will be kind of ready for that. Has Steve Bruce got that kind of thing in his locker, like a Ralph Hasenhüttl? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that out there.
Okay. For me, it's going to be another tough game. Everton, of course, come a cropper at the weekend, so that's something positive. But it comes back down to the supporters, doesn't it? The supporters not being in, and sometimes, we've said it before, Liam. It's like having an extra man, isn't it? Having 52,000 at St James's Park, and it just takes one controversial decision by the referee, and suddenly the crowd wakes up, and it's having a go. And I mean, do you think that's why we've seen a lot of strange results this season? I mean, it's very rare that we get into like 6-7 games into the Premier League season and everybody's lost a game. There's usually somebody out there who's unbeaten. But not having crowds in is definitely having that effect, isn't it?
Look, I think it's accountability. I really do. I think some players, or probably very few players, it'll be a small minority will thrive off fans not being there. The ones who get nervous, who produce on training grounds but can't do it. The vast majority of players are used to this. They're used to playing in front of crowds. They have been for a long time. So this is something totally new to them. This is just training ground football, and I think it lacks accountability. I think you'll see in certain games that when the flow starts to go, it happened at Newcastle Manchester United. When Manchester United started to get into a flow, Newcastle United were unable to prevent that. That game, for me, with a crowd at Newcastle, doesn't end 4-1. It might still end 2-1. It may even still end 3-1, but it doesn't end 4 because there is an accountability there. It's not a conscious thing. I don't think players are deliberately switching off in games, but I think it's a subconscious thing that almost you run for a throw-in and all you see is empty seats, whereas you run for a throw-in, you can hear and see and feel and smell and it almost taste that there's a fan, that there are people breathing down your neck. You make a mistake, you want to make up for it. You won't go into your shell, but I think there's a little bit of blaseness when these kind of things happen now, and you're seeing that in a lot of games. That when the flow goes one way, you're seeing big score lines that you wouldn't normally see or expect, and I think Newcastle were guilty of that in probably 2 games this season. Maybe the Brighton game to an extent early on, and then definitely the Manchester United game later on.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be a tight game. Can you see him sticking with a similar kind of formation, Liam? Do you think it's going to be, or do you think it's going to be wholesale changes? There's a lot of comments on social media at the weekend about a lot of our attacking players not having a smile on their face, and the likes of Almiron and Miggy in particular, Almiron and St Maximin in particular were highlighted on social media. People saying that they just didn't look happy.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be happy when they're seeing so little of the ball. Players don't play to chase other people around on a football pitch. They play because they want to play with the ball at their feet. They want to be involved. And Newcastle United don't really do a lot of that. It probably isn't a particularly enjoyable team to play for. Now, if you're playing in a team in a formation and you know that gets results, I mean, Rafa Benitez at times was a little bit like that, but players knew if they stuck to his form, stuck to his direction, that they would get results at the end of it. I don't think there's the same belief that that'll happen under Steve Bruce, although you can't argue with results so far this season. They've had some really good ones, some really bad performances, but some quite positive results, really. So it's another one of these seasons which is just probably going to rumble on and should nothing happen halfway through, with fingers crossed, hope it does. But it could be one of these seasons which just rolls on and we don't really know how to assess it, because the performances are poor, but we stay up and we'll finish about where we did last season. Is that progress for Newcastle United? No, of course it isn't. But would we take it now? We probably would, yeah, because I certainly don't want to be dragged into a relegation battle when there could potentially be some kind of change of ownership just on the horizon.
Prediction for the weekend, Liam?
I never like betting against Newcastle United, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't something along the lines of a 2-1, 2-0 defeat. That's just being realistic. I think they're a good side, Everton, really good side. Somebody mentioned in the comments there, Calvert-Lewin loves a goal at the moment. He scored a few against us as well. They've got a lot of really good players. They've signed a lot of good players this summer. Lucas Digne, I'm not sure, somebody said he might be suspended. He's a fantastic footballer. I absolutely think he's one of the best left-backs around. The midfield, they've really invested in that midfield and changed themselves around. So James Rodriguez is another that's just an absolute game changer in terms of not only on the pitch but off the pitch. It just signing a player like that gives you a worldwide following. It gives you a belief. It shows you there. You're in the Premier League, but you're not just there to exist, which Newcastle United are. But yeah, I think probably a narrowish defeat, maybe a 2-0.
Before we finish, I'm a South Shields lad. You live down there and you were at the South Shields game. Well done. Great for them to progress in such a prestigious competition, mate.
Yeah, probably wasn't quite the draw they were hoping for. They all wanted Sunderland in the first round, which would have been an absolutely fantastic draw. That would have been great to see. They didn't get that, but it was a fantastic result. We haven't seen South Shields at this stage of the competition since 1973. In their current form, they haven't been in the most recent form of South Shields Football Club. They've never been this far. So, hats off to them. Graham Fenton, Newcastle fans out there, well, that'll really sort of jog some really bad memories from the mid-90s when I mention his name. And Lee Picton are the joint managers there. And
both good lads.
Yeah, they are fantastic and really good. A good management team, good balance, and the history makers under them. They've made history at Wembley, and they're now making history on South Tyneside too. So, yeah, that's the paper I work for, the Shields Gazette. My missus is from there. Half my family's from South Shields. I'm not. I'm from north of the river, but yeah, fantastic achievement for South Shields.
Yes, I'm the sand dancer on the show, but I'm proud of it, and I love going down there, and I love seeing the lads. Obviously, I support Dunstan, of course, but I do like to get down and see Shields if I can, and all the very best to them. Great to see them. Liam, before we finish, I always give you an opportunity for you to just say, where people can find you and tell people, how they can read your articles, although after today, probably people won't need to be pointed in the right direction, but go for it.
No, I always say this on here as well. Like, if you do like what I say on here, if you like the kind of thing that I do, at the Shields Gazette, we don't really buy into this idea of clickbait. That's why you get stories like you do today. We're going for in-depth analysis, breaking news stories, transfer exclusives, whatever it may be. And to be honest, to get that kind of good quality journalism, I would say that, of course, but to get that kind of good quality journalism, you have to pay. We're not always going to get this for free. We work on a subscription model. So if you can afford it, I know it's difficult, but if you can afford to subscribe, maybe pay a little bit for what we do. That just keeps the world ticking over, keeps us in a job and keeps things moving forward, and allows me the opportunity to break stories like I did today. So yeah, you can find me at Liam J. Kennedy 23, and also the Shields Gazette website. Just search it on Google. It'll soon come up. And I'm pretty sure if you search on Google Newcastle United tonight, you'll probably find my story right at the top of the search. So
yes, Well done, mate. Well done. Big thank you to everybody watching. As I say, please just click subscribe. It's free to do. Hit the thumb before you leave. We're on again tomorrow night. It's a pre-recorded show tomorrow. I'm working tomorrow and won't be back to do it live, but we'll do a retro show, usually on a Thursday, but it's on Wednesday this week. And we'll be looking at Middlesbrough. Me, Steve Hasty, Neil Mitchell, George Mitchell, and Stuart Penman are all looking back at past and present games against Middlesbrough. Famous fans. We always pick our 11 players between the best teams. And then Thursday, the newly married John Gibson will be on with Super Mac. And then on Friday, which is one of our most popular shows, the three amigos will be me, Steve Hasty, and Neil Mitchell chewing the fat about the last 7 days at Newcastle United. We will be doing a match day live at the weekend as well. Join us for that. It's always good crack. We have an international panel on of people who come on and take us through the game. It's always a good laugh, and I'll get the rattle out if Newcastle score. And on a Monday night, I'm trying to remember if I've got everybody in. Yeah, Monday night is the girls' night, ladies' night. We'll have a great panel on a Monday night, and always well worth checking in. So just subscribe. It's free. Get yourself on and become a fan of NUFC Matters. Liam, been an absolute pleasure tonight, mate. You need to go and get a can out the fridge. You can spare one. You'll need the rest for when the takeover goes through, mate. Speak to you next week.
Fingers crossed.